Dodgeball.
That was always the thing we wanted to play, was dodgeball, and trying to hit each other, and who got the biggest ball, who got the softball, ball that they use, and hardest ball, so.
Yeah, beautiful. She's talking about dodgeball and how much her guys wanted to play dodgeball and want to play dodgeball and how much they like it. And you can feel it, right? You can feel it's kind of aggressive, which is really neat for them. And I'll call that today aggression nurturance. Okay, you're going to hear that term popping through later. Aggression nurturance, where they're nurturing through aggression and using aggression to nurture. And obviously, we're going to make a distinction between aggression and violence. That's something else. Violence is something else. But this is aggression nurturance. And dodgeball is an example, and it involves an object moving through space. Okay, so that keep that in mind, because when we talk about gender-like personality is based in nature, that what you just described, anywhere I have gone in the world, I have the same dynamic, and people are coming up with their own diverse reflections of that, because there's something going on in guys' brains. And this is a room, I want to just also exemplify something else that's interesting. This is a room, we have a room packed with people who are educators, mental health professionals, parents, and some of you are corporate. I'm guessing some of you are in business. When you come at this, you see something called Understanding the Minds of Boys and Girls, and you come at it now, right? 2017, now. Do you have more burning questions about girls? Or right now, do you have more burning questions about boys? So yeah, so how many people, you came here, you saw what this is about, and you have more burning questions right now about girls? About girls. Okay, I see, great, okay, and believe me, we will talk about girls. Okay, that's one person, and then boys. How many of you came? Boys, right? Most others. And of course, we all have questions about both. It's not an either or for me. And I have 2 daughters, so I actually have no sons. So even though you all came looking for sons, wrong place, I know nothing. Yeah, no, obviously 30 years of research, and I was a boy, so I've got that. But so I have daughters, and the trajectory of female development is really, really important. We're gonna work with it here today, and throughout this, throughout this conference and throughout this course. But at the same time, now is different than 30 years ago, or 25, or 20. Now there are so many resources to help girls, which is great, and to help us to work with girls. And the systemic change that needs to happen now is clearly in helping boys, right? Because now we're realizing, wow, we created systems that didn't take into account the fact that aggression is actually touch attachment. Now, any of us who went to undergrad or grad school, can we agree? Or is there anyone who heard your teacher say, your professor say, aggression is a really healthy form of touch attachment? Anyone? No one has raised their hand. Maybe someone at home has, God bless you. But generally we don't hear that, right? And yet those guys that jump on top of each other, play dodgeball, everything actually that's been described here, including throwing those darts, that's a form of attachment. So I believe now, so in the last, I would say 5 to 10 years, this is happening wherever I travel, and I'm getting this from around the world. It's one of the reasons that we're shooting this to make this e-course, because we're getting a lot from around the world, questions and confusions about male development. And in this book, Saving Our Sons, I have the new WHO study, World Health Organization study, and it's there, in which the World Health Organization last year said that the markers for males and females are now tilting female positive, male negative, around the world. So more males, are dying, more males are having mental health issues, more males, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, killing themselves, et cetera. And females now, even in countries that we would think of like China. My daughter spent 2 years in the Peace Corps in China, and when she went there thinking what we had brought her up to think. I had never been to China. We thought China, highly patriarchal culture, women are really oppressed there, males elevated there. I admit that I knew nothing. She got there, and there are many ways in which women need help. But she saw the same thing the World Health Organization is seeing in a place like China. Really negative markers with guys. So this issue that we're dealing with here and that folks are dealing with through this course, this issue is becoming universal. And so a lot of what I'll be saying today is going to skew male. but I'll also work with girls. So keep in mind that nature, and I just gave you just this little example of how nature is in there in these brains. Okay? All right, so some of the things where this can affect us in our environments, in our systems. I've put some questions here, some thoughts. Often this is, wherever we go, we're getting these sorts of things. And I just feel like here in this community and the communities watching, that some of these are questions that are getting asked. And so what we're going to talk about today is affected by this. I went away for a second. So how race and ethnicity play a part in discipline and motivation. It's a really, really big deal. You'll feel it underneath what we're talking about here. Suicide prevention, social emotional learning, the pressure to succeed among kids, both boys and girls. The effects of chronic learning and life stress on the developing brain. And you may also know that we now know that this life stress passes on epigenetically, that in other words, the next generation can be affected, their brain development can be affected because of effects on sperm and egg, and I'll talk more about that today. So obviously bullying behavior, discipline policies and procedures in a district, it's a constant question, always talking about that. Health and wellness questions for individual students, so making sure that individual students are helped. The need to take a system-wide approach, and that's obviously where we are at. We're involved in system-wide approaches, consulting, helping with interventions, trainings, everything system-wide to try to get the system so that it shifts. And when we do that, we're looking at these 5 things. Teachers, so building district-wide, so teachers and making sure all are trained in the brain science and everything. Students and children district-wide, getting it so that it comes down to the kids. Parents and community members, can't be done without the parents, right? Very hard for the school to make changes and the parents to be saying, so a famous one is, so a school district, we had this happen where the school said, yeah, right, aggression, nurturance, touch, attachment, that makes absolute sense. So we're going to allow more play, supervised, but more play on playgrounds that allow more of this. And this is when it was an inner city community. And then a kid went home, hurt, which is kind of par for the course. Kids get hurt. But the parents had not been trained in all this. So they saw this as the kid was bullied and attacked and didn't realize, no, this was a new policy in the school to allow males to work in ways that are more male, right, that fit their genetics and their gene expression so that they can flourish better rather than constantly being ashamed of who they are. Now, the parents sued the school. So obviously we've got to have everyone involved together, and mental health professionals and district leadership and administration. So that's the system-wide thing. That's getting everyone together over a 1-2 year period of interventions that affect everyone so that everyone shifts toward nature, nurture, and culture with some good nature in there. Okay, so understanding the minds of boys and girls. Now, even that itself can be controversial. So does anyone know what I mean? What do I mean? It's controversial. Who wants to take a risk and lay it on me? Anybody? Go ahead.
That kids choose their gender.
Got it. She said that kids choose their gender. Okay? So here at this talk, I just want to say, at this talk and in all of our work, we know that there's a current in culture that keeps alive the concept that actually emerged about 30 years ago, the androgyny concept. So again, I'll be 60 next year, so I'm born in 1958. As I was coming up as a young feminist, and by the way, I would still consider myself a feminist, equal rights for women, so if that's what feminism means, I am definitely that. As I was coming up, raised by 2 feminist parents, going through the academic systems, we were, in the 70s was very much about androgyny. That there was going to be a human being that is male-female, and then that'll get rid of male-female. Male-female will go away because it's going to be androgynous. So it penetrated the culture, and then 10, 20 years ago, I believe I'm one of the people that have helped to look at that and say, no, there's brain science here. It's a really neat concept, but we have these different demographics of people. And I will argue, by the way, and I'll show you scans today of males who I will call bridge brains. So about 20 years ago, I took that and I said, no, we're not going to get rid of male-female. Here's why. I can show you the scans. But there are some folk who are bridge brains, who bridge male and female. And those are the folks who we would say, oh, I bet that's what we mean by androgynous. But those folks are 1 in 5 to 1 in 7. So they're the exceptions that prove the rule. The exceptions that prove the rule. The rule is still male-female. I notice blue lights happening and this goes away. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Is there something that... Huh. Okay, if it's all right, it seems to come back. So I'm going to make the argument now that we are in the same place in a way that we were in 30 years ago, where there's a current in the culture that avoids science. You can't look at the science, because if folks look at the science, then they'll just have to say, okay, we can't make the point we're making. So they don't look at the science, and what they say is there's no male and female, or as you said, male and female is chosen. So since male and female is chosen, we should basically get rid of he and she, and because there isn't a he and she, right? So what I've done here is lay out what we really mean, because they're actually not talking about the thing we're talking about, okay? So there are actually 4 parts to this.